Since its launch in 2005, Broad Street Review has sought to promote the exchange of viewpoints rather than any particular point of view. To that end, we welcome commentary from professionals and amateurs alike about the performing and visual arts, as well as any other field of interest to our eclectic group of contributors. The following interview was submitted to Broad Street Review, powered by Rep Radio. Today I am here in the studio with Terry Brennan of Tribe of Fools.
I'm holding my hands up. I don't know if anyone can hear that, but
it's officially the start of. Actually, we're today at the start of Fringe Arts.
Yeah, festival kicks off today,
and it is always the official start of our coverage when I sit here and talk to Terry because we're talking about a Fringe piece. So we have like this annual return where I find out everything about Tribe of Fools and what we have to offer right now, and it's always a pleasure to come chat with you. So welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So this offering is Fly, Eagles, Fly.
Oh, yeah.
And that's pretty awesome because we have a winning team, Super Bowl winning team here in the city who just had their first win yesterday at the season opener.
Right. That was...
Yeah,
cool. The whole yesterday feels like a week ago because we're in tech.
Yes, yeah, and if you could barely watch it, so you're just kind of like, oh, they win, oh, good.
Yeah, we had a show, and like I was saying earlier, there were a couple of guys who were like, I'm missing the game for this, and I was like, dude, I didn't drag you here. Someone bought a ticket for you, so I assume it was you. But I mean, and it was funny. I was walking around downtown yesterday, and like. I had forgotten. So my brain was just on the show. I'm like, oh, we have a preview tonight, so it's the first time with audience. I got to get this ready. I got to get that ready. And then but everywhere you went, there was nothing but Eagles gear, and I was like, man, people are just really. Oh right, today's the first game. Like, because I was like, you always see a lot of Eagles gear in the fall, but like I saw obviously season opener, tons of it, but it took me like. I think it was like the 10th or 11th shirt before I was like, today's the first game.
And you kind of forget that downtown is becoming a little bit of a destination. Like, there was this whole to-do at Comcast Center in promotion of it.
Really?
The Today Show had filmed there all day, and they were doing basically like pep rally. So it was kind of cool. If you walk by, you'd see a bunch of crane cameras, But you're a local, so you don't even look at it as like a big deal. You're just like, they're filming a thing over there.
Or you think about like where you can't get to because like things are more crowded than usual.
It's rush hour.
Yeah,
they could have done this at any time. So tell us about the production, Fly Eagles Fly.
So Fly Eagles Fly is let's see. There's so much. Well, it was started because like right after we won the Super Bowl, Wendy Rosenfield sent out this like on Facebook. I was gonna say a tweet, but it wasn't a tweet. She put out a Facebook status where she tagged me, where she was like, "If Terry Brennan doesn't do a show about the craziness happening on sports radio this week, like why do I even go to theater?" or something like that. It was very flattering, and I was like, "Oh." And
I guess we know where this episode's going.
Yeah, and so we kicked around. We were kicking around like one or two other ideas that like both of them were like not quite there. Like we were like, it's not a fully formed idea yet. There's kind of an idea, but not an idea. And I was like, this is the one, because as soon as she said that, I'm like, this is, if we're gonna do it, this has to be the year.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll win 2 in a row, but hopefully. But you can't really bank on that. You can't be like, guys, I've got a great idea for next Fringe if we win the Super Bowl. So we talked about it, and the show is basically about the tension between hardcore fans and more casual bandwagon fans.
Fair weather.
And and how that plays out. And so in the show, the main character is a woman named Gwen, and she's like a kind of boring HR person who doesn't do a lot of exciting stuff. And she kind of discovers football and the Eagles, And one of her other coworkers, Bruce, who's been following the Eagles since he was like in the womb, is kind of like offended or threatened by her fandom, and so then out of that comes a whole like that's where the tension of the play comes from.
Yeah.
So
this talk of fair weather friends, or as is listed in your description, the not real fans.
Yeah.
Identifying the not real fans. Whenever someone asks me when I'm outside of the city, oh, those Eagles, all right, or the Phillies are doing well. No one talks to me about the Flyers.
Or the Sixers.
Because of my skin.
Yeah.
I might hear about the Sixers.
Yeah, you'll hear. I thought it was because the Sixers weren't any good. But yeah, but I guess we were good last year.
But my response usually is, I am a Philadelphia fan. So whenever my city is doing well, then I'm rooting for the team. But I may not watch every single game, but I get to a couple of Phillies games a year. I haven't been to an Eagles game in a while, but I watched the Super Bowl, and I watch, I'll watch game if someone's there. If I can get there from the beginning, I will watch it till the end. But I'm just not. I'm not a sports fan. It's the arts and culture of the city that I'm into, but. What's interesting about Philadelphia, and maybe there are just pockets of this throughout other cities, is that those lines do blur.
Yeah.
Because I can remember being behind the scenes of many productions where the fans are backstage, trying to stay on top of the score. If they can't see the game, they still know what the score is. And I remember one of my first shows doing It's a Wonderful Life at Plays and Players. They were running downstairs to watch the game because there was a monitor down there. And the last run of the show, they changed the line when he gets the letter. Wherever his brother is.
Oh, right. It took me a second, but yeah.
We got a telegram from Flying Eagles, Philadelphia, because the Eagles were doing well at the time, and it was so funny. If we had a crowded audience, it may have been an issue, but it was like at that time we were just like, why are we still open? It's been like 2 weeks. We should have closed a couple weeks ago, but. Just having that fandom is here. It's everywhere. We don't just have pockets of theater people or pockets of sports fans. We have fans.
Yeah, it's like an
pretty
overlap.
much everything we do, and they just kind of blur here. So
I mean, half the actors in town that I know are like pretty diehard Phillies fans.
Yeah.
I knew a guy who was a Cleveland fan, and he was like, It's really tough being a Cleveland fan and an actor in this town.
And we're just so passionate. We're passionate about everything, I believe, but our sports fans are probably the most passionate.
And that's kind of part of it too. That's kind of part of the play. Is that like, well, I was saying that I tell people when I go to other cities or when I go and visit my family back in Omaha, if people ask me about like the Eagles, which it doesn't really happen that often, but it happens. I tell them that I was like, no, Eagles fans, man, they chant EAGLES at baseball games, at basketball games, at hockey games. I was a waiter when I first came to the city, and I was like waiting. I had like a party one day. I had like someone's birthday party in the back. Some old dude. He was. It was like him and his kids and then his grandkids. I think there was even like some babies that were grandkids. So he was very old. And his whole family started just because it was like March, so it was not football season. They were chanting EAGLES for his birthday. That's just what they were doing. And I was like really new. I was like, they're chanting the Eagles. They're spelling out Eagles back there. And somebody was like, oh, yeah. Some of them do that. And I was like, oh, that's a thing? They're like, oh, yeah. And then I would see it at baseball games and hockey games, etc. But, yeah, it's intense. So that was also, like, we wanted to grab, like, that is an interesting person, like, to do a story about, right? Yeah. Is that, like, someone who's, like, really hardcore and, like, lives for football and bleeds green and, like, so So it makes for a lot of fun in the show when Gwen, the main character, kind of butts heads with Bruce over and over again about like who's more of a fan, and like. Yeah, and then there's the whole like ritual aspect to it. Like someone gives a whole talk about how like once they score, you can't move. You can't move from your seat. And somebody's like, well, "What if I gotta pee?" Like, too bad you don't pee. You can't move. And so, so like it was the fandom that I think Philadelphians have, especially for the Eagles, is really great for drawing characters.
Yeah, and this isn't the first play that features Eagles fans.
Yeah.
This, but it's not hard. It's not even a stretch to think we should tell stories on stage about the sports fans in this city.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's a really special kind of dedication that some of them have, and like I don't have it. Like I grew up Catholic, and I was expected to do a bunch of sort of like rituals and things like that, and I'm just bad at it. I'm just inconsistent as a person, so it's tough for me to be like a sports fan in some ways because I'm always like maybe I'll watch. I watch football. But I watch it like if it's convenient. So it's not even like if we're doing well. I'm just like, is there a game on right now? And someone's like, no, it's coming on in 2 hours. I won't be here. But if they're like, it's on right now, I'm like, let's watch the game. Like that's kind of the way, which I think sometimes gets mixed up for when people are like, you don't know this or that about the team. I think sometimes people mistake me for a fair weather fan. And it's less fair weather because it's not that I follow when we're doing well. It's more like a lazy fan. Yeah. I follow if it's super convenient right now. But I really do enjoy watching football. But so then going through, though, I talked to a number of people who are like, a couple of actors who are hardcore. I talked to a friend of mine who, don't know what she does for a living, but it doesn't matter. I talked to her because she's an Eagles fan, and she has like her own like sort of like blog that she writes about the Eagles, and it's called Sports Muse. In case anyone wants to check it out, but Sports Muse
we'll put
is the name of
in the show notes.
Yeah, it's the name of the blog. But so I was like, well, Brandon would know, or maybe Megan would know, and they just had all these things to tell me that were very important if you're watching a game. Yeah. One of which was like. I think Megan was like, once they score, you got to basically stay where you are. That was her thing. Brandon, I forget what Brandon said. The big one that stuck with me was once they score, you don't move. The other one was like, somebody told me that they always had to go to the same bar. Like they were afraid that if they went to a different bar, the Eagles would lose. And they know how silly that sounds. Like they would often be like, because like really, I'm the one doing it, right? And they roll their eyes. They go, that being said, I have to go to the same bar.
So can you watch the Eagles play without wearing green?
That's interesting. I mean, I've done it a lot. So, you know what? I mean, like that's the other thing is that like they didn't talk about like what to wear. Someone did say though that you also can't like change your clothes during the game. Which like I was like, well, who changes their clothes during the game?
Take a shower.
Yeah, right. But they were like, no. But if you're wearing a hoodie, you can't like come in wearing a hoodie and then get hot and take the hoodie off. I was like, really? Well, what if you're hot? They were like, Terry, you can't take the hoodie off. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm sure there are people who are like, you can't come and watch it without wearing green. I'm sure somewhere there's someone who super believes that.
Your friend hosted this party. Tell him to stop being cheap and turn on the AC.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally right.
He's like, open a window.
So I mean, there's all sorts of just rituals
But that's not even specific to Philadelphia and the Eagles. That's just sports.
Sports in general. Our writer, Caitlin, she just got married. Caitlin Corkery. Her husband is a Pittsburgh fan, and they've got all the same. It's all the same rituals or very similar ones. But yeah, it's totally a sports thing. I feel like the Eagles fan legacy is that court that they have below the link. That courthouse that like they're like if you,
Eagles Court.
Eagles Court, like if you commit a crime, we'll have you in and out today. If you're going to jail, you'll go to jail today. You'll have your trial today.
What was the judge's? I don't know if he's still the judge. Seamus McCafferty.
Oh, possibly.
Seamus McCafferty. So the Eagles Court judge came into the fruit stand where I used to work for a training session. And I remember talking to him about the technology, and people were just coming up to him going, "Oh my God, I think you're great." And I was just like, so you want to click here if you're going to get that thing, right? And I just remember saying to him at one point, well, you practice the law, and you know that very well. I was like, so you're quite the expert at the law, and you came here for technical expertise. I was like, so we all have value, and sometimes your value trumps my value. In this moment, I think we can consider ourselves equals, so we can kind of sit and relax in this moment. And I just remember having a fun conversation with him, totally not fanning over him, but all these people kept hovering around the table. And then, the stories of Eagles Court came after that.
I bet. Well, I was crowdfunding for the show. Is it still
there?
I think so.
It is still
so I don't actually know. I think so. I mean, I always heard about it when they still played at the Vet.
I mean, that should be a TV show, like Judge Judy.
That should be a TV show. Like
this time on Eagles Court.
That would be great. Well, I had a friend.
Can't throw cheese in your opponent's face. You just can't.
Cheese is getting off easy. Like, I have a friend who I asked for money for the show. I was like, hey, you should make a donation. And she was like, listen, you're awesome, so I'm giving you some money for this show. But I'm real hesitant about giving money to a show about the Eagles. And I was like, really? And she's like, I'm a Green Bay fan, and I went to an Eagles game, and they threw batteries at me. And she's like, and I'm still pretty bitter about it. And I was like, I'd probably be bitter too if I got hit in the head or body with batteries. And I knew a guy who I used to work with, and I think this guy was all talk, but he claimed that if someone wore opposing fan gear in his section, he would throw his beer that hadn't been opened at them yet.
I think batteries are heavy. Like,
batteries are heavy. A full beer that hasn't been opened is heavy. Like, and that's my point. Is like that's why they got Eagles Court, man. They're a rough bunch. Like,
I think everybody embodies. We are the sorest losers.
That's the truth.
We embody the Broad Street Brawlers mentality. Every single team. It doesn't matter which team.
That's the truth.
If we are not winning, we are the Broad Street Brawlers.
Well, you know what's funny about that is, so when we lost the Super Bowl I think it was 2005, right? So I had just gotten to the city. I moved here in 2003, and in 2005 we went to the Super Bowl, and I was like, I'm going to watch this game. It's going to be amazing. And everybody kept saying if we lost, like, oh man, if we lose, the city's going to burn down.
Oh yeah. Riots in the streets.
Yeah, but like the thing is that when they lost, and I've seen this a couple of times outside of the Super Bowl. I've seen it like with either divisional games or like just really usually just the high stakes games. Actually, most people just like mope home. Yeah. Like when we win, we absolutely burn things and flip cars and jump off of awnings into the crowd
and move large planners and tip cars. Yes, it's crazy.
But when we lost, I remember like being kind of nervous walking home. I'm like, oh man, am I going to get caught in some like giant fire? Yeah. And as I went home, like the streets were actually really quiet, and everybody was just like super bummed. Now that was only where I was at, so I can't speak for the whole city, obviously. But I feel like there would have been a lot more coverage if they were like, whole parking lot burned to the ground. Yeah. And so. But I mean, I found that
crazy because it's a parking lot.
Yeah,
11.
But like, I remember the year before that, we went to. I don't remember. I think we got to like the NFC Championship, and I believe Tampa Bay knocked us out. But what I remember about that is I was working at this restaurant, the same place where everyone was chanting Eagles for this ancient man's birthday, and everyone was saying if they lose, it's going to be really slow in here for a while. And I was like, what? And they were like, when the Eagles lose, people don't go out. I'm like, that's not real. And they were like, it's absolutely 100% real. They were like, no one will. They were like, people are just going to stay home and be bummed. And there was a guy that I ran into on the street who, he was bumming money. He was like, hey, can I get $1? And I was walking home, and I'm like, here's $1. And then he started talking about the Eagles. He was like, man, let me tell you about the Eagles. I was like, this is an interesting interaction. I thought I'd give you this $1, and then you'd be on your way to get another $1 from someone else. But he wanted to talk Eagles. And I was like, tell me about the Eagles. Guy I just met. And he was like, these guys, if they don't win this game, man, like, if they don't win this game, and I was like, oh, this guy's getting, like, really mad. And he's like, it's like they don't even care about the city. And I was like, I don't think they lose games on purpose. And he was like, and it was because after I gave him the $1, someone in an Eagles jacket walked by, and he yelled at the guy in the jacket, they better win. And I was like, that man is not on the team. He just has a jacket. Yeah. But his whole thing too was like, he said this whole thing about like, it totally sinks the economy when they lose. And I'd heard that from a couple places, and then they lost, and it was absolutely slow in the restaurant. Yeah. And everybody was just in like people are just really emotionally tied to that team. Now, I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and so I'm no stranger to football. Like, we don't have a pro team, but like college football is king in Nebraska, and it was a similar thing. It's not quite as extreme, but that being said, like it still was like people would sob when they lost. And I've heard the same stories here that like I've heard like of like grandmothers who just like they watch the Eagles, and when they lose, they just bawl and bawl and bawl. And I was like, that is crazy. And or like, but like just like the intense sort of emotional attachment that people have, and when they win, it's as if the individual watching the game won. Like that's how excited they get. And the same when they lose, it's as if that individual watching the game has failed in some way. That is what was really interesting about
everybody
making
around
the
you
show.
Becomes your therapist.
Yeah,
I mean they played hard. I mean seriously, we need to sit and have a talk about this.
Yeah, right. And so it's really interesting to sort of dissect like what it means to be a fan and what it. It's its own thing. It is, in a lot of ways, for some people, very religious.
Yeah. Did Caitlin feel any kind of way about how did she feel approaching a piece like this?
She was pretty excited. We talked about. So I was like, check it out. It's going to be about Eagles fans, and it's going to be called Fly Eagles Fly. And then she was like, what else? I'm like, that's all I got so far. So. We had a couple of like brainstorming sessions, and we settled on like, oh, okay, so old school fans versus new school fans. That'll be the thing. And then we talked a lot about what the story would be. And she doesn't follow football, but like again, her husband's family are hardcore Pittsburgh fans, Steeler fans. So she'd already been sort of like introduced to, and she, I almost said she was like forced to watch games. Well, not forced. I don't think anyone like sat her on the couch and was like, "You're not leaving." But like she would sit and watch games with them, and there was all these rules that they had to follow. So, like you were saying, since that's not unique to Eagles fans, at least the ritual part of it, I just started asking around to find out what that was. But she was really, really excited to sort of like take on like a project like this and see like what jokes we could get. And she like had this whole binder of research at one point before we started doing story stuff. She was like, got all my research, and she showed me. I was like, woo. I mean, it was no joke. I was like, that's a lot. Okay, I'm
dramaturgy on point here.
Yeah, you're making me feel like really bad. I'm kind of a shoot from the hip person when it comes to like maybe it'll be this, maybe it'll be that, and then we'll look it up later. She like looked it up all ahead of time, and then we had to be like, all right, so where do we start in this like tome of stuff? But she was really into it and continued to be into it as we went along. A lot of the show ends up being about. Even though there's a lot of Eagles stuff in it, it ends up being about like the relationships between the characters. So when we got stuck, we often got stuck on like, okay, so like if so and so does this, then how does that play out in the show? So that was where we got stuck a lot. We never had any problem with Eagles stuff because there's no shortage of like amazing and fun things that you can like pull up. But as far as like, okay, well, how do these characters interact and where does the story arc go? That was where we spent a lot of our time, like kind of banging our heads from time to time, being like, how do we resolve this? How does this happen?
And that's a good point too, because I guess walking into it, you think it has to be like steeped in Eagles lore, but really it's a series of revisits and kind of collected moments that you can kind of you're taking a couple of stories and putting them all together. The backdrop is the Eagles.
Yeah, and the Super Bowl season
story could be somewhere else, technically.
Well, the story, like in another city, you mean? Yeah.
Or just like another. This story could have been over here could potentially stand alone, but you bring them together.
Yes. Yeah, actually, that's true because it takes place in an office, and it has to do with sort of like personal relationships, but the personal relationships are strained because of sort of like fandom and what it means to be on a team. Like we constantly put, besides talking about teams and talking about we basically did a timeline. Like we loosely tracked last year's Super Bowl season, so they'll talk about games that happened, and they even talk about a couple of very specific plays that happened.
Yeah,
and there's a couple of them are like acted out on stage in really comic ways. But so aside from following that timeline, the big thing was like, oh, how do these people then come to terms like with each other? Like everybody was on a team. There was always like like if you took the whole cast of 5, there was usually like a clique of 3 or 4 and then one person on the outside. And that changes a lot. So we wanted to look at like what it means to be on a team or to be the outsider, to be like the person who's kind of like not on the team. Or occasionally there's like 2 teams, but like a lot of times it turned into like, oh, in this scene, Gwen's on the outside and everyone's kind of teaming up on her. But in this scene, Lara says X, Y, or Z, and so everyone turns on her. And we added, for good measure, Tom Brady is in the show. And I'm not going to say too much about Tom Brady, except for that.
But he was expensive. He has a special performance contract.
Yeah, he's got a SAG contract, even though we're not film. No, he is delightful to hate in the show, and we used him as like he was constantly like, oh, when in doubt, everybody hates Tom Brady. We can always be on the same team against Tom Brady.
How do I get out of this hole I'm in?
Yeah.
Well, it's not like Brady.
Yeah, and so the way we use him in the show is actually probably one of the most fun parts of the show. I kind of don't want to say too much about Tom Brady in the show because, to be honest, he has a series of surprises, and I don't want to say too much, but we're not very nice to him. I have a bunch of students from the circus school that I work at who are coming to see the show tonight, and they're from all over the country, and I had to like put out some feelers. I'm like, listen, you just need to make an announcement. Like, if anybody is like from New England, specifically like the Boston-ish area, we're not super good to Tom Brady, so they should just know that coming in.
Yes. Is there anything special if you come dressed in Eagles apparel?
You know what? There should be. In fact, there's going to be. I'm going to, you know what? Go to tribeoffools.org. And the reason I say that is because as of recording right now, I haven't thought of the deal. But there's going to be a deal because there should be a deal. Yes. Like, I've been like underwater getting everything ready for the show. Like, we open in like 3 hours from this recording. Yes. And so I've been running around all day doing like just like pants on fire stuff. But we're absolutely going to have an Eagles deal. And because usually when we did Antihero, we had like come in a comic book T-shirt and get a discount. And like there is no shortage of Eagles gear in Philadelphia.
No.
So there will be a discount. It'll be on a particular day. By the time this airs, I'll have figured that out, and it'll be on the website.
Do you know how much? Do you know the cost of Eagles merchandise in the production?
Man, all right, let me tell you about that. So our costume person was like, dude, we have 2 major problems. I'm like, 2? She's like, number 1, Eagles gear is expensive. And I was like, I knew that was going to be an issue. We're going to have to Authentic, exactly.
But we are in Philadelphia, so you can go to Modell's or Foreman Mills. Is Foreman Mills still open? I think so. Yeah, there are some places you can go to get exactly. And I was like, look, you can find cheap Eagles gear. I go, but it's going to take some looking. Might need to beg, borrow, and steal. But like, there's knockoff. There's you can get. But the second one is she goes, when a team wins the Super Bowl, that stuff just goes on all their merchandise. Yeah. And so since this show takes place before the Super Bowl, it was hard to find in stores anyway. Yeah. Eagles gear that didn't have Super Bowl champions or like Super Bowl 52 or like it's all covered in like we won the Super Bowl, baby, and we're like no, I'm very happy, but we're doing a piece that happens. It would look really weird if it was technically before the Super Bowl and someone was wearing a Super Bowl thing. That's where the beauty of a nonprofit comes from. Because then you go, hi, Mitchell and Ness, how are you? Can I borrow this from your window? Yeah, right. But we got it taken care of. There's a lot of classic Eagles apparel out there, too. There is. Actually, we have a coat one of the guys wears that we had to like specify couldn't be worn in the opener. It's this sweet 1980s like vintage. I think vintage is the word. It's just it's from the 1980s, right? It is in pristine condition. Nice. The letters that say EAGLES look like something out of Conan the Barbarian, and right above the NFL logo is this big square that just says light beer, and it's clearly Miller Lite, but it doesn't say Miller. But I mean, like it is, and like it is beautiful. Like you look at it, and it is like, oh, so this is what Eagles fandom looked like in '81. Cool. And there's a couple of, I think that is the oldest thing we have. But yeah, like it is. I love it. I like it. The gear that we found is like truly wonderful. There's like one of those, those like I Heart Philadelphia or I Bike Philadelphia shirts. We've got an I Football Philadelphia shirt, which is like very like you're like, so you like the Eagles and you shop at Trader Joe's. This is the shirt for you. So, which was also interesting to see that there really is Eagles gear for everybody. Like the people who sell that are like, look. Plus Target panders like it's nobody's business. I've never heard it said like that, but that is the truest thing. As soon as you walk in, you are hit in the face with whatever anybody's talking about outside. It's like, boom. Oh, wait, by the way, it's beads and everything. You can get all kinds of stuff. That is exactly what Target is. I tell you what, man, I've never heard someone say that, but that is like my every experience with Target. Yeah. Wow. Are the Eagles aware of this production? So, maybe, and I'm glad you bring that up, Darnell. Probably, we reached out to them, right? Like our publicist reached out and was like, there's a theater company doing a show about you guys winning the Super Bowl. And we never heard back from them. I'm sure they like looked at that letter and like thought that was cute and threw it away. A lot of people were like, dude, you can't just call it Fly Eagles Fly. Like they have that trademarked. Like you're going to get sued. And I was like, number one, I don't think the Eagles have the bandwidth to care about a theater company our size. If they did, that would be a huge compliment. If they were like, how dare you? I'm like, oh, dude, we're on the level. Cease and desist. Yeah. So 7 lawyers are coming to the show. Yeah, exactly, right? But the other thing is that Fly Eagles Fly, because I looked into it, is because there was a big story about, they trademarked the thing Fly Eagles Fly. Not the original. Yeah, they trademarked the phrase Fly Eagles Fly for apparel. Yeah. So I can't make shirts that say Fly Eagles Fly. I probably could if it didn't have an Eagles like logo on it, but like I can't sell Eagles gear that says that. But like
they one, we don't really, we talk about the Eagles like a lot, but there's nothing illegal about that. And then the show is called Flag Was Fly, but that's totally legit. I was hoping though that like maybe they would find out and maybe somebody would come see a performance. There's a new Eagle man on the team who I guess is a unicycle riding enthusiast. I only know this because I work at the circus school. Cool. And when they drafted him, everyone at the circus school lost their minds. They were like, dude, there's a player on the Eagles who rides a unicycle. And yeah, it's just totally it. And they were like super pumped about it. And but like that being said, like I would love for the Eagles to know about it and maybe some of them come see a show. They're in their season right now, so I'm sure they don't do much on days off except for like rest and do things that are terribly expensive because they're all rich. But or at least they're rich for today until you ever watch the Dwayne Johnson show Ballers? Yeah. Yeah, like anytime I'm like, yeah, football players are rich, I always think of that show. I'm like, but not really.
And it's like there are pockets of people in every city that live in certain neighborhoods. Yeah. Like they don't tell you that. They just go back to their neighborhood. Yeah. Yeah. They don't live like down on Shunk, Maybe
I know, right? Oh, dude, if you played for the Eagles and you lived on Shunk, because I live near Shunk, you'd never have any privacy. Like everyone within 3 blocks would be at your house every day. And on those days you lost games, you better believe they'd be like, I don't know why you're sinking the economy. You would, oh God, if you lived on Shunk Street and you were an Eagle, you would have to have like a wall around your house and cameras at all times because people would be on your couch being like, let's chat.
I will say when you live in South Philly, it's great for these teams to be doing so well because you just walk around and everybody has this sense of pride and everyone's wearing the colors they get somehow. And the thing is, I see like even the shirt that I'm wearing is paying homage.
When I saw it at first, I thought it was an Eagles shirt. I mean, it's designed to look like that.
Yeah,
but like,
that's what I like. Who do? We do.
Yeah, yeah.
I post this one all the time.
Well, who was it when we were talking about the show? And this is so I spent a lot of time like kind of like not dissing, but like talking about how aggressive Eagles fans can be and how intense they can be. The thing that I think about Eagles fans and kind of about the city in general, which you talked about, is that somebody was explaining when we were talking about like should we do this show, and mainly like not should we, but like do we want to? Is it going to fit into what we do? And somebody was like, the other day they were like, it just brings so many people together in certain ways. Like it actually does. You have to be somewhat into sports. I'm sure there's some people, we address this in the show. There's some people who are like football is barbaric and there's all sorts of like terrible things associated with it. That's addressed in the show. But if you're on the inside, if you like at least casually follow, suddenly there's all these people that you might not have gotten along with who suddenly like, you're like, friends by default. Like somebody said that there was a problem at the bus stop. I forget. I wish it was Zach Chiaro, the choreographer, and he said that something happened at the bus stop and everybody got very frustrated and then somebody was like, they got stuck. He was on the bus and they got stuck and everybody was really mad. It's rush hour, right? So you're like, this is rush hour and I'm stuck on a bus that you're stuck on a bus. Like you're just on the bus. You can get out and walk, but that's it. And everybody was frustrated, and some guy gets on, and he has like an argument with the bus driver. And so everyone's stuck, they're mad. This guy gets on, he has an argument with the bus driver, and some guy from the back of the bus yells, "You guys, stop it! The Eagles won the Super Bowl!" And he said the whole bus erupted in laughter. And he said, you're right. It completely like nullified the situation. And he said that like then the guy like laughed a little bit, and then he and the bus driver like figured out, because it was, I mean, we've all been on the bus, and there's like a very heated dispute over essentially nothing. And so the guy recognized it was nothing, and they both kind of forgave each other. And somebody else said they had a thing like that too. for the days after the Super Bowl, he said that I had multiple Tribal Fools company members talk to me that like people on the street would legit just be like, and keep in mind, like most of the Tribal, there's Peter, the set designer, is a hardcore fan. There's a couple of people who watch occasionally, but Peter's the only one who would wear, who probably has gear. Yeah. Everyone else probably doesn't have gear. The other company members were telling me that they're out and about in their non-Eagles gear, and people are like, hey, what's up? We won the Super Bowl. Like, it's just like people just talked to each other, and for like a couple of days, everybody was just on the same team because we won the Super Bowl. And like now, like, I see you're in the streets of Philadelphia. You must be a Philadelphian, and you must care about the Eagles. I'm going to tell you we won the Super Bowl, and you're going to be psyched, and I'm going to be psyched, and we're going to go about our day. And it was kind of like a magic day or two.
There's a way to generalize it, so even if you didn't see the game, you saw it.
Yeah.
There's a way to have the conversation when someone's like approaching you with the hardcore and you're just like, yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Good start. I mean, and that ending. Whoa. Yeah. What about that ending?
Well, and if you, I think everybody in Philly knows that if you're also like a big one that people would say is like, you know, man, we won the Super Bowl. And then someone else is like, yeah, man, we beat Brady. And people are like, yeah, we beat Brady. Like, that's a thing I found that like, I mean, I feel like most people across the country, if you're not a Patriots fan, have a certain dislike for Tom Brady for a number of reasons. But, like, here especially. Yeah. Like, he beat us a million years ago in 2005. But also just, like, it's that thing. Like, if you don't follow that much, you know that we beat Tom Brady. And and then you say it and someone high-fives you.
You're like,
so.
Yeah, that team that beat Brady, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we were talking about. So I did have a question, and you kind of answered it. Can the Eagles pull us together as a community? So I'm wondering if the next time Washington acts a fool, over in D.C., we could just say, hey, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And they're like, this right here, everything.
There is one or two lines in the show that are kind of like that. I don't want to get into it because it comes towards the end of the show. So, but I mean, yeah, the thing is I mean, it's tricky, right? Because like on a superficial level, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but just like on a level of like of daily interaction, like absolutely, or especially if you're feeling like, I feel like, we touch on this a little bit in the show, and I feel like there's a lot of people in the city, and this is me sometimes, who just feel really alone. Like there's days where you just feel alone, and that can be for a number of reasons. And that can be really heavy. Yeah. But like the thing is that like the whole like, hey, we won the Super Bowl, or hey, go Eagles, like that's a real thing. That's a real thing. And I think that's a thing that, like, so if you are a casual follower of sports, like I definitely am, and you have confessed to be, one of the things that's easy to overlook is there is legitimately this sort of like, it's this immediate connection with total strangers because you like the same thing. Yeah. It's kind of similar to like, we had to cut one of the bits in the show. It's always rough when you have to cut a bit, but we had to cut it for time, and it was a good bit, but it's similar to, for example, for non-sports folks, like Pokemon. There's a lot of people who, if you do Pokemon, you're like, Pokemon. Yeah. And one of the guys with Bruce, the hardcore fan, has a Pokemon binder. And if you sit at a certain part of the stage, you can see he pulls it out at one point, and it's a silent bit. But there was a moment where someone gets fired, and there was a commentator bit where he had to walk through the office, and they're like, oh, he's walking. Oh, looks like he left something at his desk. He's going back. It's really sad when you're almost out the door and you got to go back to get a thing, but you know what? He'll live. And then as this character gets towards the door, they go, oh, it looks like he's stopping at Bruce's desk, and what's that? Oh, it looks like Bruce is taking out his Pokemon binder. And then Bruce gave him back. That's the holographic Charizard card that he lost when they fired Andy Reid or something like that. But it's one of those things where like it was a fun little bit. But like when you think about like subcultures, like you've got like Pokemon, you've got like comic books is another one. Although comic books is a little more vast because like are you a hardcore comic reader, or do you just read X-Men, or are you a DC guy or a Marvel guy? But with a sports team, right, with the Eagles, it really does, especially in times when things are going well, hey man, go Birds, go Birds. And it really, I've had a number of interactions with strangers, not over football, but that really brighten my day. And they're usually like an exchange, maybe 2 quick exchanges. And when they go well, I'm always like, connection with other people really makes a difference. And so in a lot of ways, sports provides that. And one of the characters in the play talks about that, how it provides a certain amount of community, and that he's very frustrated that someone else is telling him why football, there's all these bad things about football, and he's like, look, I get it, you're not wrong, but also this is how I grew up, and there are I have connection with people literally just because of this thing. Yeah. So for you to say you should just stop today is a little bit of a reductive view of emotionally what it means to me. It's a nice little exchange they have, but I think that there is something very real in that.
And at this time of year, if you have a tough week at work, you're just working to get to Sunday.
That's true. That's super true.
You're working to get there. When you get there, you can kind of just relax and know that you're here with thousands of people. I mean, it's even more than that. It's
way more.
Because the stadium was packed on Sunday night. And if you live anywhere near Broad Street, you can see just, all the stops. Everybody unloading off the subway and just walking around, and everybody's wearing the same colors, and you're just like, I don't care if it started late because it rained. It's just little things. Like you said, I didn't set out to watch the game, but I was fully aware of it.
It's hard not to be.
Well, I mean, last night's game was Thursday.
Yeah.
Seeing Sunday. I knew that the game started late because of rain. That's something that I just heard on my way home.
Yeah.
Oh, it started late.
On the street, I'm sure.
Yeah, and then, I would have gone to bed, and then I was like, wait a minute, I wonder what the score is. I said I should at least know what the score is for the next day, because I'm prepping for this interview. So then I get there, and it's only halftime, and I'm just like, okay, it's halftime. All right, okay, they're good. And then, so we ended up sitting there sort of, not necessarily falling asleep on it, but just sort of watching it towards the end, and ended up watching till the clock ran out. And it's like, okay, I saw the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw that game. It was good.
Yeah. Well, I live by the stadium, and when we beat the Vikings, that was the last game we had to play before we got to the Super Bowl, I could hear the stadium. And I mean, I don't live super close. I live on 20th and Snyder. But I probably shouldn't say that on a podcast. I mean, there's a lot of houses near 20th and Snyder. But
they're not all 423.
Yeah, let me read my. Well, it's not exactly. They're not all 2006. So if you
don't like the show, we'll have the address in the notes.
You can go right. You can file a complaint directly. But I'm not close. I mean, I'm close-ish, but it takes if I were to walk there, it takes 20 minutes, maybe a little more. If I did if I bike there, it's a 5 or 10 minute bike ride.
There, no problem.
But my point is that I could hear a dull. And I was like, "Is that the stadium?" And I went outside and was like, "Yeah, I think that's the stadium," and it totally was. It totally was.
And the funny thing about that is, between your house and the link is another stadium.
Yeah, right?
So much has to pass before the rest of the city realizes, oh my God, this game is still going. And depending on where you are, if you're one of these high-rises, you can see all the lights.
I bet.
That's where all the electricity is right now. Okay, so the production, it opens tonight.
It opens in, hold on, let me look at my phone. It opens in 2.5 hours.
Yeah, because this is how I roll. I get to the last minute. Look, I know you have a show, but can I just talk to you for about an hour and a half about this thing where you should be prepping? I guess, I usually say, what do you hope people take away from this thing? But, yeah, I mean, like, what do you hope they get out of this?
For me, I think what I hope people take away is...
I mean, we're obviously aiming to satisfy Wendy.
Exactly. I hope Wendy Rosenfield, if she's listening, sees the show and likes it. If she doesn't, please don't tell anyone because it will kill me. I think that the thing that I focused on, and you kind of have to see the show to understand this more fully, but hope. Like, honestly, like, a lot of times, tribe shows aren't dark, but I'm kind of a pessimist, and I'm kind of like, I don't want to give a sunny or a rosy disposition. I don't want to look through rose-colored glasses, I think. Yeah. I don't want to, like... And in this... And I don't think we do in this, but I did want to say, like, there's something about people needing other people that, like, there's just a certain hope in that, and that's kind of what I hope people take away. I hope people look and go, like... Come on, theater people. People. Every time I say that, I think of that song, and I'm like, but
the
like,
luckiest people in the world.
They're the luckiest people. But yeah, I hope that people take away a certain sense of, like, here's what it is. Why hope is important. I think that's what it is. I think for me, why hope is important, because when you see how the show ends, it's a mixed bag. I like shows to end with, like, some things are good, some things, might not have worked out the way you wanted them to. And I hope people take away, like, why sometimes, like, hoping is a good thing, is important. I think that's it.
Yeah. So whether you're a diehard fan or a not real fan,
hashtag not real fans,
you are part of this community. So you should come see Fly Eagles Fly. It is on stage at the Louis Bluver Theater.
Yep, at the Drake Hotel. The Drake.
And it's open now. So if you're listening to this,
it is open. And if you're listening, I'm probably significantly less stressed than I was at the time of this recording.
It's part of Fringe Arts. You can go to tribeoffools.org for more information, and there might be some information on special something.
Some special deals if you wear Eagles gear.
And I thought we could step out of this by just not quietly, but just sort of humming the fight song.
Really quick, we're going to do that, but do you know the words?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I have them written down.
Oh, no, because someone taught them to me at a restaurant job, but apparently a lot of people don't know, all the words.
Originally, so I even know that they were, it began differently, it was tweaked.
Oh, I didn't know that.
In the late 90s, so what we know now is fairly new, like 98-ish, 99.
Oh, okay.
99 season, technically, it was sort of retooled and brought back out in 1999 because 1998 wasn't a great season.
So it's the remix.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do this, right?
You ready?
Eagles fly on the road to victory. Fly, eagles fly. This is why I don't do musicals. Touchdown, 1, 2, 3. Hit 'em low, hit 'em high. Fly, eagles fly. Fly, eagles fly on the road to victory. EAGLES, Eagles!
Thanks, Terry.
Anytime.
This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Fly Eagles Fly at the Drake, tribeoffools.org, part of Fringe Arts.
Want to get involved with Broad Street Review? Head on over to our website at www.broadstreetreview.com and click Get Involved at the top. While you're there, help keep us running and click Contribute to find out how. Connect with us on social media on Facebook and Twitter at Broad Street Review. Thank you for helping to keep the conversation going.